Welcome back to Hardball and the Politics Fix. Our roundtable tonight, Jonathan Allen of Congressional Quarterly and Maria Teresa Petersen of Voto Latino. Simple question. We're going into Tuesday. And you first, Maria Teresa, this question. Can Hillary win both? Can she win in North Carolina? Can she pull the upset and break open this campaign fight between her and Obama, exploiting the Jeremiah Wright issue?
Well, I think, first of all, thanks for having me on, Chris. I think she's doing quite well for herself, and it's impressive. I think she's broken up the debate long before this coming Tuesday, and what she's been able to do quite well is really put in this lingering doubt, is Barack tough enough? Is he tough enough? And in the beginning, when she kept going after him, and she was a little scruffy, and she kept going after him and fighting, people were saying, you know what, I don't like that shrill Hillary. Now it's not a shrill Hillary. Now it's someone who's strong, who definitely knows her angle, and she's doing quite well. So she definitely has a strong possibility of keeping that momentum.
I don't know how to react. Every time I see the shot and beer picture, I go, she's capable of anything. Anything. Go ahead, John. I mean, really, she will do it anywhere.
I think that's right, but that's part of the American election experience in a national election. You got to appeal to a lot of people in a lot of different places, and that's what both of the candidates try to do. And if you can do it well, you win the presidency.
I have to be tough here. When you put the Indian headdress on, you don't say you're an Indian, and you don't say you're an Indian chief. You just say you're sort of doing it for sportsmanship. She was taking that shot in the beer as if she actually does that.
Yeah, well, that's what you got to try to do. I mean, it sounds like breakfast to me.
Okay, your answer. Can she win both?
No. Can she? Sure. Will she? Probably not. North Carolina is a real steep climb for her. The demographics just don't match up.
Why? Not just because of African Americans, but because of the highly educated crowd around the Research Triangle and the business crowd in Charlotte.
And you've got Asheville in western North Carolina, which is essentially San Francisco in the middle of North Carolina. I mean,
it is.
Yeah. So I mean, there are a lot of wealthy, white, educated liberals who are the type.
The allure of one of these. So it is sort of an interesting, much cosmopolitan area. It's not deep south or anything like that.
That's right. Well, there are a lot of places in North Carolina that aren't like that. It's an interesting state. If Hillary Clinton were to win Indiana and North Carolina, Barack Obama would be in deep trouble.
Let me go to Maria Teresa on this Jeremiah Wright. My suspicion is that he's causing trouble. That I don't know whether the Barack has shaken him loose or not, but he's causing trouble in this sense. Voters don't quite know Barack Obama. Now they know who his minister is. They don't like the minister. They think he's a radical. They think he's angry, and they're worried that Barack Obama is like him in some way that they don't know about, and they're worried about.
Chris, no, but you know what, Chris? I think you're right. But I think what the fact was that the nation didn't know Wright a couple of weeks ago, with the exception of the excerpts from YouTube. And during that time, Barack Obama kept saying, he's my pastor, but he's more kind of like my crazy uncle. Well, we saw what happened at the National Press Club, and Barack was kind of right. He is kind of that crazy uncle, and where some of the stuff may be right, but the delivery and the message is not. So I think this was actually giving that opportunity, and folks may disagree with me, but the fact that you were able to give Reverend Wright that platform where folks actually saw them for themselves, saying, you know what, Barack, maybe not the best judgment to stick around with him so long, but you're right. He's kind of that crazy uncle, kind of charismatic.
You know, and I've learned from experience that the trouble to get in is usually during the question and answer period. You can give a really good speech, but if you get in that Q&A, you don't know which way you're going to go. Let's take a look, by the way, at a comment made by John McCain today, which I think is going to have a lot of reverberation, where he seems to say we fight in the Middle East for oil.
Friends, I will have an energy policy that we will be talking about, which will eliminate our dependence on oil from the Middle East, that will then prevent us from having ever to send our young men and women into conflict again in the Middle East.
Jonathan.
Well, I mean, it certainly seems like he's drawing the specific connection between an Iraq invasion and oil and future invasions in oil. I think there are probably a lot of Jewish Americans and a lot of Israel supporters who aren't Jewish who think there are other reasons to fight wars in the Middle East.
Well, the whole argument for democracy in the world and peace and all those good arguments we heard from the neoconservative people, the philosophy of the Bush administration, the Bush doctrine, he's sort of ignored there. What do you think, Teresa, that Maria Teresa, that John McCain, it seems to have said something interesting there today?
Well, I mean, just look at the crowd. They started clapping, but they didn't finish clapping with what he just said. And I think it's very telling. For a long time, people have been protesting no blood for oil, and he came out and said that's exactly why we're there. As someone who has a family member serving in the Middle East, it's very heart-wrenching. And as an American, regardless if you're an independent, a Democrat, or Republican, I think it really takes you a step back and say, we don't want politics as usual, and you just told me that that's what we've been doing.
Well, what does he say to squirm out of this? I think you both probably are saying you first, Jonathan. He has to find some way of saying, I didn't mean what I said. But the language is so strong. He said, prevent us from ever having to send our young men in the Middle East again. In other words, that's the reason we go in. That's the reason we'd fight Iran. That's the reason we fight Iraq. That's the reason we fought to liberate Kuwait. It's all about oil, because he's saying we wouldn't have to ever do it again.
What you'll probably see him try to do is make an argument that the United States oil interests and all of the things that come from that, including a lot of money going to the oil-producing states who then fund terrorism, force us to go back into the Middle East. I think that's the direction you will see them take. I think that quote and that videotape is going to be hard to back out of.
He's saying that we won't need the oil, so we won't have to fight for it. No, it isn't about the petrodollars going to support terrorism. He's saying we won't need the oil here, so we won't have to go fight for it there. Maria Teresa, your thoughts?
No, I agree. I think it's a matter, he's going to have a very difficult time walking away from this, because everybody heard it and it was very clear. And he was supposedly at an event that was supporters of his. And again, you see the very end at the very last part of the clip, and no one's clapping for him. So
he's lucky he's not saying this in front of a debate. If this were said at a presidential debate in October, this would be up there with Jerry Ford saying that we've liberated Eastern Europe about 20 years ahead of time.
And the Democrats are editing and filing tape of this and the Sunni and Shia stuff.
This gets repeated a million times.
It's not a big thing right now, but it will be before the election.
We're going to see this, gentlemen. We live in the Hall of Mirrors, where you get repeated over and over again. Thank you, Jonathan Allen. Thank you, Maria Teresa Petersen. And to requote Michael Kinsley, the great Michael Kinsley, a gaffe in politics is when you say what you believe. And we will return, our own Howard Fineman, author of the new book, The 13 American Arguments. A couple minutes coming up. This is going to be the hottest part of the show. We're going to talk about race and where this country's got its glass half full or half empty with its Obama campaign. Right now, this weekend, where do we stand? You're watching Hardball, only on MSNBC.